So who have we relied on in the past to do anything about this problem?
This slide may seem meaningless and self-serving,
But it does have a point.
which we'll get to later.
And admittedly, we're making vast generalizations.
But for fun,
if nothing else,
let's look at what some of the other players of society are doing.
Governments.
Today's agenda is skewed to a focus on both cost-cutting and debt reduction.
And being good administrators.
We've devolved to sound bites.
Taglines revolve around putting money back in the wallets of taxpayers.
Not social programs. No one seems to have an inclusive vision.
And a right-wing laissez-faire,
invisible hand ideology seems to have taken hold.
Notwithstanding the crisis of 2008.
I mean, seriously, when was the last time we saw a top-down, trickle-down strategy work?
The social safety net has clearly and progressively diminished.
Primary goals of politicians sometimes seem to relate more to simply avoiding the perception of criminality and injustice,
or accusing your foes of such things,
as opposed to really dealing with the problem.
Which is how to build that problem-solving capacity.
How do you empower people?
We believe, in coconut terms, the role of the government should be to build community problem-solving capacity and capabilities.
The kind of stuff that would let more people build more surplus things.
Things like food security,
housing,
healthcare,
education,
local infrastructure,
among other things.
An important way of avoiding the fight over distribution is to build more surplus.
Or alternate ways of creating it.
A Bougainvillean example would have been the irrigation project that no one farmer could have constructed or funded themselves.
Let me give you another example, downloading and decentralization.
Without the associated funding, it's cost-cutting with no plan for capacity.
Or capabilities building.
Community capacity
and capability building
is a bottom-up exercise.
The government has actually outsourced doing things.
They have outsourced the problem to you.
Without giving you any funding or resources that those that sit on the surplus benefit from.
Let's look at some of our other institutions.
The banking and financial system,
which govern so much of our society.
Since economics seems to take absolute precedence over everything else,
plain and simple, monetary policy and too-big-to-fail consequences have created a welfare state for large banks.
Banks don't seem to have any interest in lending to small business or other job creation activities.
Other than within their own sector.
And in fact are losing local lending management skills that are being replaced by algorithms and a hyper-product focus.
Risks that they do take seem more associated with compensation plans than what you can get away with dealing with other people's money.
Big corporations, they don't care.
In fact, an argument can be made that they can't care.
Also, most are short-term thinkers focused on short-term risks.
On efficiency,
productivity,
process improvement.
That's what shareholders expect from them.
Cutting jobs and finding ways to pay people less money is actually a good thing.
For big companies, their goal,
their job,
is to try to leverage externalities.
In essence, to capture more surpluses for themselves by pushing competitive advantages to their absolute legal limit.
Running out of surplus locally.
Concepts of globalization allow multinationals to capture global surplus.
Often with the road paved by war and conflict.
They're the commercial equivalent of a mercenary army in a neo-colonial environment.
With absolutely no concern over consequences.
Multilateral trade agreements that reduce the sovereignty of nations.
Of individual people.
In essence, grant corporations the legal right to capture more surpluses.
Without governments being able to intervene in any way.
In fact, if they interfere, world courts may impose penalties.
Schools don't.
No one can argue that universities have sold out. Business school is now the biggest revenue generator for schools.
In my own humble effort, because I don't believe we should complain without trying to do anything about it, my own coconut revolution is in its second year at Rotman, and I am proud to say that I am not alone.
So, who's going to fix this?
Who's trying to do something about it, even if just to survive?
Entrepreneurs do.
To some extent, entrepreneurs have been sold a dream.
Supported by the few that make it big. But they do create products and services that disintermediate the incumbents.
That reduce the marginal cost of existing products.
Their job is to take incumbents head-on and mess with them.
Basically to paint graffiti on the existing infrastructure.
Small business does.
They don't have the same access to leverage externalities and capture surplus that the big guys do.
They're living day to day,
month to month,
year to year.
But they act on a local level and are able to potentially capture the true trust and affinity of their target audience.
And they in turn keep a significantly higher portion of their revenues locally.
This is important. Really, who can you realistically build a relationship with?
Can you build a relationship with a multinational brand?
It's pathetic watching some of these companies try to be sincere and authentic.
Now, immigrants do.
They take risk.
They bring with them diversity and a greater propensity for risk.
And the mere act of immigration implies that they're seeking something better.
If you think about it, people working for minimum wage and trying to make ends meet,
Who have a family,
they have no choice. They're already taking huge risks.
working their way
Somehow,
to a better life and have limited alternatives.
the unemployed,
Being unemployed is a huge individual risk.
being motivated to live motivates them to solve these problems.
Perhaps they just need the capacity and capabilities.
Students,
They take the courses we suggest, get the education we sell them on,
but they take the risk, and a lot of them today are ending up with the short end of the stick.
and think about all of this.
Really, ask yourself,
What does this mean?
while these people are actually trying to do something good,
There's people that prey on them.
the payday loan
The
folks,
student loan industry,
predatory big box retailers,
junk food purveyors,
and other consumer packaged good merchants of sugar and salt addictions and other toxicities.
the consumerism and ad industry.
At least tobacco comes with warnings.
Let's not forget government-sponsored gambling and the lottery.
The tax on the poor.
We're even beating down unions and pension funds.
Think about all the minorities, women, and handicapped that'd be screwed if it wasn't for their union.
And as we said, who is going to fix this?
You are.
Or at least you're trying.
That is why we're here.
So imagine this.
This is absolutely true.
The Bougainvilleans won the revolution.
With sticks
In stones,
and coconuts.
they innovated out of a blockade
A siege.
and outfought a vastly better equipped army,
They now have to manage and distribute surplus.
ideally in a fair and equitable fashion.
And if they get to the point where we are,
Where our current situation speaks to how surplus is distributed,
and who takes risks and responsibility in building surplus,
what do you think they would think?
was the revolution worth it?
Would life under the thumb of RTZ be much different?
Perhaps just a different thumb.
At least like War and Tribute,
RTZ was clear and rational about its objectives,
as opposed to obtuse and deceptive.
like those that outsource political will.